Welcome CSE 235 class, and we're going to do ex11. I'll give you a little overview first, and I just want to point out that I am working with my new code editor Atom, and you might want to try it out. And I do have another video where I just give a little overview of Atom. I'm going to try it out here and we'll see how it goes. And what I'm going to do first is you're going to download a folder called ex11-randomImageArray or random-image-array. I'll go see what it is. Now to do that in Atom, you open a project, not a folder, and you can do it over here. You can say add project folder, or you could just open a project, and we'll close some of these windows here. So I'm going to open a project, and it's going through this window here, and I'm going to go find my project, and the one you're going to download, I have it in my notes here. It's going to be called ex11-randomImageArray for random image array. So I'm going to just hit open and open up that folder, and notice there's a DS store in there you could just ignore, but there's going to be an images folder and there's going to be a ranimagearray.html folder. Instead of an index.html folder, I'm just calling it ranimagearray, and that's fine for now. So I'm going to close up this thing, this welcome guide. I'm going to close up untitled. I'm going to close up my welcome, and I'm going to close up my telemetry content, and I'm just going to open this up right now, and you can see it's in this dark background, and I have this kind of like purpley kind of highlight color, which I may change, but I'm trying out right now. And you can see it's putting comments, HTML comments in gray, it's putting JavaScript comments in gray, and some of the other colors like image files and things like that are in bright green. So we'll see how you deal with this. So I know it's a little bit different, but just to show you this file that we have here, I'll just go through this a little bit, and let me show you the finished product. And I mentioned too, in Atom, you can right click and you can open in browser, and that's what I'll do right now. I'll just take a look at this, and there's nothing really exciting going on here. You can see the title is called Image Array, and it says see new image refresh and image each refresh, and I think we're gonna have to change this because we're not going to refresh it, we're actually just going to hit a button. And there's rocks, paper, and scissors. So there's only 3 images, and they're coming up random because we're going to do a little rocks, paper, scissors game here, you know, as far as like playing against the computer. But just for right now, we're just setting up random images, and there's only 3 of them. And I also have a button to hide it, just so we know how to do that, and I'll ask you to do that. But that's what's happening. A button is showing an image. That's it. And it's showing a random image. Now, it could be any number, but we only have 3 right now. So let's go back and take a look at the code in Atom. Now, again, we have our basic HTML, we have our title, and on our body we have see new image each refresh, and I'll just put see random image. You know, you could put whatever when clicking the button or whatever. And I have a hide image. I'll eventually take the file you have won't have all this in, but I just wanted to show you some things here before we actually start working on it. So that's an H2, so it's a little smaller than an H1, and then there's 2 buttons side by side, and I just have non-breaking spaces where they're side by side. So there's a show random image button and a hide image, so when you're all done, and you could see they're running 2 separate functions. There's a show image function and a hide image function, which makes sense. And where the image is going to show up, and this was from the other exercise that we talked about a little bit, it's just a paragraph ID, and this could easily be a div ID or anything else, but it's just anything with an ID. It just happens to be a paragraph with an ID name of image here, and that's it. So its ID name is image here, and remember in JavaScript we use that because that's the place where we're going to put our image, and we kind of worked with that in our last exercise where we were doing that SpongeBob thing. So now we're going to put random images in this place. So we're going to have a little more work to do here. And we have our JavaScript, and I'll just go through the JavaScript, and I'll just show you some things about it, and then I'll kind of review working on it a little bit. But just a quick overview of the JavaScript is we're going to create an array of images. Now, we've created arrays before, and remember, we showed the easy way where you just put brackets and you just list things in there. Now, we could do that. We could create an array called var myImages equals, and then we could just put brackets, and I could just have put these 3 images in there with commas in between them, and even with the quotes and everything. That just makes it harder to see. This way, the way we have them set up here, we're creating a new array object. Var myImages equals new array, and it puts an underline. Whenever there's a new object, it seems to put an underline, at least in this theme. and that's the new array, and it does have parentheses there. So it's creating a new array object called myImages, and then we're defining myImages0, the index 0, which is the first in the list, is going to be images/rock.jpg, and then the second one, which is index 1, is images/paper.jpg, and then images or imgs/scissors.jpg. And where they are, there's a folder here of images. So it's looking in this directory. So that's why you're going to have to download the folder so that you have these images in here. And when they're going into a folder, they have to go into the folder first and then find the image. So that's what's happening here. And it does preview these things here. So which is kind of nice that it shows a preview of what the image looks like. So I'll close that up and go back there. So if you need to see an image, you can see them. So those are our three images, just rock, paper, and scissors. Those are our images, and that's our image array. And they go 0, 1, and 2 are the index numbers in that array. And what we're going to do is we're going to show an image. Now we could just showing an image isn't that hard, but we're going to show a random image. So that means we're going to need to generate a random number, and we've already done that. We did that in other exercises with the random number. So we're gonna do that again, and then we're gonna show our image. And showing our image is very similar to what we did with the SpongeBob thing, with all those little quotes and stuff. So what we have now, we could have done this so that it actually generates an image on refresh. So if you had a banner ad or you had some kind of like header image that you wanted to change every time somebody went to the web page, you could have it change on refresh. But we're going to use a button for that one, for this one, because we've done that before. It's a little more familiar. So we'll kind of run this and click through it, because that's what we're going to do first. Now, keep in mind here's our JavaScript, and there's our, now to say start JavaScript, just be aware that has to be an HTML comment, because we're not inside the script yet. We're not inside the JavaScript. So this has to be an HTML comment, and again, after it's an HTML comment. And HTML comments use that tag and then the exclamation point, 2 dashes, and then it finishes off with 2 dashes and an arrow. So that's the HTML comment. And then we have our script here. There's our starting script and our ending script. And let's see, does it show? It doesn't show the beginning and ending, kind of like brackets where it highlights both. So it doesn't mean it doesn't do it yet. But this is our starting script. This is our ending. I'm not sure why this is orange and that's blue, but like I said, I'm new to Atom here, so we'll find out some things as we go. These are comments here. This says set up the image files to be used, which we're doing. And then what we have here in this function here, now I'll ignore this function for now, the hide image, don't worry about that. But this function, I just want to point out, we have a couple things in here, and I did put the random number generator inside the function so that it does it each time we click the button. Or that you get a different random number. You want to make sure you're generating a different random number each time you click the button. So that's why we're putting that inside the function. And this is var, we're creating a variable called randnum, which we've done before. And remember, we're doing math.floor, floor rounds down. So it would round down to 0, which is good because we have a 0 here. And then we're also going to do the math.randomNumber generator. And that has the parentheses in there. And then we have to times it by 3 because there's 3 elements in this array. So we're going to multiply it by 3 and then round down. Because remember, it only gives a number from 0 through 1. Not including 1, so we do that times 3 to be able to do that. And we've done that before, so that's what's happening. And again, I didn't do this here, but we could put something called like array length and change that to the array length, so if we ever added images, you wouldn't have to change this number every time. But this is generating a random number from 0 through 2, believe it or not. So, because the floor is rounding it down, so it's not going to get to 3, it's only going to get to 2, so it's going to be either 0, 1, 2. That's not too exciting of a random number. It can only be 3 things, but it'll work for what we're doing for rocks, paper, and scissors. So we're generating a random number variable, and remember, we usually want to take that random number and kind of use it instead of here, in place of the 0, 1, and 2, because whatever that random number comes up, we're going to put it in there, and then that generates the random image. So that's where we have that variable. So eventually that's going to go inside, and you can see it's down here. Now let's look at the rest of this. Now this looks a little different, but it's not really that. It's just broken up in 2 separate ways. It says var x, because usually we just go document.getElement by ID image here, which is this place up here, and then usually we go .inner HTML equals. But what we did here, we broke it up in 2, just so we didn't have to have a real long line. We're just saying, okay, var x, and we're just using an x as just a nondescript kind of variable here. We're just saying x is going to be document get element by ID. So X is just basically the element by ID, and then we're just shortening it and saying x.enter inner HTML. So we're kind of breaking this in two by making the variable be the first part of it. That's all we're doing. So the variable is the first part of that statement, and then we could just say x.inner HTML instead of all this .inner HTML. And remember, inner HTML writes content to the page. But if we're going to be putting content in here, we're going to be putting it inside the p tag. So it's actually going inside a paragraph, and normally we just put text in there, but we're going to be putting a tag in there, and it's going to be an image source tag. And that's why we practice with the SpongeBob, and I did what we did on the SpongeBob thing. I put a single quote on the outside of our tag. An image source is one tag. It just has a less than and greater. It doesn't have opening and closing tags. So we have single quotes outside, and then inside what we have image source equals, and then we have double quotes, because everything is going to go inside that image source equals double quotes, because that's the way image source usually works. Whenever you have image source, it usually looks like this, with something in there. But what we have in here now, because we're actually putting a variable in here, we're not putting a string in here, we're putting a variable, and what we have to do is we have to put another little quote. So we're alternating. We had single, double, now we're putting single, and this combining our variable with a string where there's nothing in the string. So it's just going to be a single quote, and it's going to be plus. It works better when we put the little plus in there, even though we're not adding it to anything. And then my images random is the variable. Remember, my images is the array, and we're going to just plug random in there. So random is either going to be 0, 1, or 2, whatever one comes up here. So this will generate a random and plug it in here, and then it should show a random number. And then this whole function, show image, will be generated with this button on click, show image, show random image. So then when I open this up in a browser, it may be open already, and here it is, and I'll hide image first. And I could just hit show random image, and it'll bring up a random image. There's paper. Every time I hit it, it'll be random. Now there's only 3, so it'll duplicate some. Sometimes it'll go in order. It won't seem that random, but it is random. And here's a hide image. So down here, and I changed that, but I guess I didn't save it yet. So I should go back to here, and I should save this. I guess this little circle means unsaved. So let me do a Command S, and that went away now. So that little blue circle means it's unsaved. So if I'd go back to my browser and I'd refresh, I think I changed C random image. So I changed that name. So when you get the file, it should say C random image. I'll change that before I give you the file. And going back to here, again, I did put a hide image function here, and I just made another button. I just copied it, and I put hide image, and I put it after the other one side by side. I didn't do anything special with it. And we did this some of those early assignments where we were showing and hiding things. So you should remember how to do that. Now I did it the same way. I did var x doc, except we don't need a random number in there. We're not generating any random number. All we're doing is putting image source equals, and there's nothing in here. There's an empty string inside of here. So we need nothing in there. We don't need these little single quotes like we did here, because remember, we had to put these single quotes, we had to put that in to use the variable inside here, but here we're just putting an empty, there's nothing in there, meaning the image source is going to have nothing. So in this area up here, nothing is going to be there when we run this second function, and the second function is going to be hide image, and we have another button for that. So that's all we did there, so that's pretty easy. This is just a little introduction to using an image array, and we're going to be doing more of this, and we're going to be adding points and trying to make a little game out of this. But this is kind of the start, so I just want you to get familiar with this. Working with the image array a little bit, and the next video I'll just go over kind of getting you started so you could work on it on your own. But again, what you're doing here is simply just creating this show random image every time you click the button, and then hiding the image. So that's really all you're going to do. I'll get you started on the next video.